On today's episode of Homeworthy, we're bringing you to Palm Beach, Florida for a look inside the effortlessly chic home of Danielle Rollins, an acclaimed interior designer, tastemaker, and author of A Home for All Seasons, Gracious Living and Stylish Entertaining, as well as Soirée Entertaining with Style. Danielle is known for her impeccable entertaining and colorful layered interiors that exude Southern charm with a fresh twist. Danielle gives Homeworthy an inside look into her glamorous Palm Beach retreat, a home inspired by the spirit of Ernest Hemingway. You'll see stunning outdoor living spaces, a magical orchid-filled allée, and her fabulous closet that's every bit as stylish as she is. Enjoy!
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Danielle. Welcome to my Palm Beach place. I have some stuff I'd like to show you. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Danielle Rollins. I'm an interior decorator, designer, author, tastemaker, and shopkeeper. This is my home in Palm Beach. My fiance and I got this house at the beginning part of COVID, and when we first saw it, I loved it, he hated it. We are literally the ultimate odd couple. We have extremely different tastes, but for some reason they meld and work really well together. And when we first came up to the house, he said, I don't like it because it has no curb appeal. And I said, that is exactly why I love it, because it is a house that slowly unveils itself to you. You enter on a side courtyard, and then the front door is on the side of the house, and we have an allée of palm trees that are filled with orchids, and it's just kind of a magical escape from the street, because you could go by this house a million times and never know it's even here, which has always been my favorite type of a house that slowly unveils and reveals itself to you, and each time it seems different. What really drew me to the space was the amount of natural light we had here, how tucked away and cozy and private it was. And when we first saw it, it had been decorated very well in 1990. And there was a red room, a blue room, a very patterned green room, and it was something the realtors had gone in and tried to put some white paint over. But I always try to find a house that hasn't been overly done, because I guess I don't want to pay for somebody else's mistakes. And it makes you so much more confident about putting your own stamp on something if there's nothing that you really like there. So it had phenomenal bones, and the things we had to do were the cosmetic, redo the bathrooms, redo the kitchen, strip some stuff down, kind of give it a little less oomph, because the 90s were very exciting, and it looked like it. It had columns and bells and whistles everywhere, so that was the first step for me, was kind of de-architecturalizing it and adding in more simple moldings and creating some door casings around to give it a little bit of structure. And I'm known for color. I love color, but this house has so much color outside and so much light and so many windows that I wanted it to be more neutral. I joke about this a lot, that it's yours, mine, and ours with my fiance. He is much more streamlined, much more minimalist, much more modern than I am, and I have never met a thing I don't like. So it was a little bit of a challenge of how do we meld our worlds together and give it sort of a masculine touch, but have the things in it that I have to have in my life. And so we've done a great job with it. He told me he wanted it to feel like Ernest Hemingway meets Peter O'Toole. And so I look towards a lot of British colonial West Indies type feels. It was one of the first times I'd really put together a full mood board to work with him and show him kind of my vision, because I think as a designer I forget sometimes that I still have to do that for the person that I live with. I'm just so used to having the stuff in my head, I've had to learn to translate it into a space that other people can understand. And that really helped both of us kind of have a roadmap that we liked. This chocolate brown, a lot of off-whites and pale blues and just little pops of color. A lot of texture on the walls, but it's an incredibly neutral house, especially for me. Here we are in the living room, and it overlooks the backyard and patio and pool area. When we moved into the house, I wanted something that felt open and airy and very connected to the outdoors because we have so many beautiful green, huge ficus hedges. And I wanted something in here that felt like a respite. So the walls are painted a Benjamin Moore color called Palest Pistachio, which I have no idea why because it's really a blue, not a green or a brown. And the walls, all the trim is done in Benjamin Moore down white. It's one of my favorite colors. It's a little grayish, greenish, beigeish white. It kind of picks up everything around, which color is really important in Florida because you get so much light on the outside that what happens on the inside can look so different than what you think it's going to look like. So I did a custom sofa from Cravat done in Suzanne Kassler, who is a very good friend of mine from Atlanta's, woven white weave. And I have to say it was my first venture using a performance fabric, but when you have an 80-pound dog that likes to go from that pool into here and roll around and everything, it's pretty important to do a performance fabric. So when I first started doing that, I was so afraid I'd have to sacrifice quality and feel, and now there are so many wonderful performance fabrics that I can't tell you the last time I used a real fabric. And the chairs were done after the Billy Baldwin slipper chairs, just slightly overscaled because I wanted a place where two people could perch and some people over here, and I like thinking through seating whenever I'm doing any kind of space because I want to feel good with 2 people in the room or 20. And so the tables were done in Burma. They're like real drip lacquer. I think they're so pretty. They have this beautiful patina on them. And of course, I like books and more books and things and objets, and it's just stuff I've collected all over the place. Normally, I keep the room filled with white flowers in the winter a lot, but I have had this kind of obsession with sort of creating a tropical orchid jungle lately, and I have a couple of orchids that I really love, and I think they're just so special. I always like something living in the space, but really started off because I found these beautiful Catalan orchids which smell incredible, and then started adding colors. So these 2 consoles were pieces that I had in Atlanta. They're Georgian, they are beautiful big mahogany, and I love them there. And then when I moved here, they're so perfect because they have this little serpent leg and the little sea scroll. And they're kind of my favorite parts of this room because they're a constant story of evolving. Like I am always adding in a different piece of artwork and putting in more blue and whites. And coral that we find in Bahamas starts getting layered in here. And it's my own like little story every day, and I'm always switching it up. But I love being able to have the big areca palms in here and how it plays off with the art and the layers and how comfortable it feels. I think one of my favorite parts of being in Florida is how you can mix in so many natural elements. The huge pieces of coral, the beautiful Italian red coral, a seashell that might be covered in a little bit of silver, and then layering in again just little bits of living with little bits of special pieces and things that have meaning. Tom and I are sailors, or I guess we're really not sailors. We're water people, boat people, we'll put it that way. So we spend our summers on a boat, usually in New England, and so there's a lot of little references in here to kind of those things we love, whether it's the scroll on the tables or some of the books on sailing. Those kind of dot around through here, and it always feels very connected from my Palm Beach life to my boat life. And I like having those little memories kind of popped in. The piece here on the wall is a Korean piece, hand painted of cranes, and I really have this thing about birds. I think I mentioned it earlier. I probably sound crazy, but I love them. I will be on the golf course and all of a sudden stop whatever I'm doing to tell people, oh my God, I hear a bald eagle. So one of my favorite birds in Florida are the sandhill cranes, and that's what these are. They mate for life, they take care of their babies, they make the most weird sound you've ever heard when they fly. And it's something that when I see them, I literally come unglued. I'm like, stop the car, there's sandhill cranes, because they're just so special. So that's why I loved this piece. And of course, no room would be complete without a bar. In the South, we call these a preacher's bar. When the preacher comes over, the bar goes away. When the company comes over, the bar is here to stay. And I love having a little entertaining space. I like to think through how rooms function. This becomes the self-service bar for anybody here who's in the pool, who's over last minute. And so I almost always have a stash of extra champagne and red wine and stuff down here. And then I have all the mixers here, can pull anything. My favorite cocktail is almost always Blanco tequila, club soda, a big squeeze of orange, and some mint. I don't know what you call it, but it has been my tropical fruit salad cocktail for decades. My inspiration in design comes from everywhere and anywhere. I think color-wise, I always look to birds and nature for my color inspirations, but I will pick a project and then I'll find a bird that has the colors that sort of represent what I want the project to feel like. In this case, it was a bluebird, crazily, but I think the colors in nature are so intense and so vivid, and they're mixed so beautifully, and the combinations are something you could never ever come up with. And then being in Palm Beach, I wanted this house to feel very tropical and have a still sophisticated palette to it. Being a block away from the lake and 3 blocks from the ocean largely played into the palette as well. So leaving the living room, we're heading into the dining room, which is directly connected, and it also views the pool and the cabana outside. And in this space, I wanted something that had a beautiful indoor-outdoor connection, that had some relevance to the other room because they're conjoined. And the star of the show in here is my gigantic, probably groaning to the max, break front that is filled with all of my little entertaining treasures that I love. And we didn't have a very large kitchen, so this piece had to come into play, and it gets more use than anything else in the house. I think one of my favorite things about entertaining is that mix and match quality, and I love setting the tables, and I love figuring out which plates are gonna go with which napkins. So a testament to the magpie gypsy that I really am, if you could see the amount of linens that are stuffed into these drawers, they are nonstop. I keep them in sets according to colors, but to me that's the part of entertaining that I love the most, is just kind of that mix match, playing like who is the table gonna be today. And some of my favorite pieces in here are, well, obviously the caviar pieces, because I've never met any caviar I don't like, and I think it's not a party unless you have caviar. And I love some of the bigger terrines up here. There's one that looks like a cantaloupe, and I've really not ever used it other than to put orchids and plants in it, but it gives me such joy because it is so goofy. I think I said earlier that when I buy, I have to always buy things in the same color palette, so I usually start off with 12 colors that I like, and you can see how everything goes together if you stay within that color scheme and you can mix it and match it. It becomes a spring or a winter quite easily with just the addition or subtraction of a salad plate. But there is nothing that doesn't go together if you buy enough of it. I think the art of setting a perfect table is to keep it casual and relaxed and elegant. I hate overdone flowers. I like very loose, very low, very easy center arrangements. I love layers of plates and placemats and the napkins, and I like things to have a slightly off feel. So I never ever strive to make my tables perfect. I just always want them to look interesting. The table is from Ralph Lauren, and it was a perfect compromise of his, mine, and ours together, because I like antiques and I like things with a rich, heavy patina. And Ralph Lauren is where you can never go wrong because there is always something for everyone. The glass top gave it sort of a lucid, like airy quality to the room that I really wanted. It directly looks out onto the pool, so I wanted it to have that easy indoor, outdoor, open up the doors for entertaining kind of feel. And the chairs were done for us, and they're a mahogany copy of a West Indies chair that I really loved that Janssen had done. And I could only find 2 chairs, and they were a much smaller scale, so I had them copied a little bit larger. I'm an accidental entertainer, more than I'd like to say that I am, but I think the key for being a good entertainer is to just roll with it, have a sense of humor, and have a well-stocked arsenal of things you know you can pull from. So I think if it's a dinner party, have something you know you can do well and that you've done over and over and over, so it's second nature. If it's casual entertaining, I always make sure I have cocktail napkins pressed, ready to go in a container. I have, wine always stashed in some closet. I always have something in the pantry that I know I can pull out for guests, because I think my favorite style of entertaining is that type that just happens very organically and very casually. Sunday, it's a beautiful day, come over for a rosé, come take a swim in the pool, or it's Friday night, we don't have any plans, how about a small dinner party? And I like those small intimate groups. I really don't stress about entertaining. I feel like, especially living in Florida, if I don't have flowers, I can go snip something. There's always something blooming, something green, and I can throw it together at whim. And my real ease for entertaining is that I'm such a magpie. I collect so many things. So it is 100% guaranteed that I'm going to have at least 12 napkins I can pull out of somewhere, and 12 plates and 12 glasses, and then mix and match. So here we are in the outdoor dining room. And I think the most fun about living in Palm Beach is that 90% of my entertaining is done outside. So we put in this really beautiful and heavy structural cabana so that it gave us this indoor-outdoor connection to the house and a focal point for the pool. But it is the perfect place for a dinner party or a light lunch or playing mahjong or rummy. And I think I love that sense of having people over, and at the end of the night after some gala, everybody ends up here in ball gowns and sitting here having champagne and sharing stories. And it's just really probably my favorite thing about this house. I put in this lattice, I did the lattice mirrors and filled the walls with orchids in a small space. It's important to think about how do you have a maximized greenery. And for me, that's kind of going up the walls here. So I love the pots of orchids on the walls and keeping it just as much of a decorated space as it is in the inside. The dining chairs are vintage brown Jordan that I found, again, at some estate sale, cobbled a bunch together, had them powder coated in the off-white color I love. And the furniture out here is a heavy iron that I designed. And I love it because it's substantial enough that even in the heaviest of hurricane warnings, I don't have to move it because it's not going anywhere. But I like a furniture arrangement that can be mixed and matched. I think it's great to have the little garden seats that people can pull up and sit on and turn around to dining chairs and change the structure of everything. And our house is painted a very, very pale apricot color, and I love navy and white, and so that's what we mixed out here, and it always has this crisp freshness to it. So let's get out of this rain and head back inside because there's still a lot more I want to show you. we are in the kitchen, and this was a space that had to be fully gutted, and it is not a big space, but it is maximalized so well with cabinetry and places for everything, and it's got a great little area for cooking, and it's just big enough. And when we did the space, I wanted something that had a transition feel to the rest of the house with the heavy mahogany and the pale blues and a lot of the off-whites. So in here, we did the kitchen in this beautiful custom pale blue with a slight gray tone to it. The countertop is a quartzite, and it had this dreamy feel to it, and quartzite is a phenomenal countertop material for people like me who like to actually use their kitchens because you can't really hurt it. And the light fixture was a piece from Martin Lawrence Bullard that I loved because it's rattan with this chunky nickel banding around it, and it had this masculine quality to it with some scale and heft, but it felt feminine enough to keep me happy with all of my collection of French wicker entertaining pieces. And these are what 90% of ends being the scene stealer at any dinner. And I collect the Charleston baskets that are woven by the Gullah women, and they're just works of art. And I probably have 20 or 30 of them, and they're stuffed everywhere where you can't see because this is a home tour. But I keep one on the counter filled with fruits at all time, and I just like those things that are done by hand, and that's why I love wicker, rattan, and natural woven, because you've got this connection to someone else's heart that they actually created these pieces, not a machine. You know, I just like a display of things. I like to have things at my hand that I can access all the time. And I like having stuff out where I can get it. I like having my cooking tools right around me. I like having a cutting board that I can use and display things on. And I'm a big last minute charcuterie board girl. And so those stay up here because it's a perfect thing. Everybody's in the pool enjoying a rosé all day. And that's the pieces that I go to for a quick, let's have something as a little snack. I really am a gypsy at heart. And the reason we had to have solid cabinets over here is because there is something inside each one of them that is so much you would never expect it. I love having all my entertaining essentials in one place. I have enough bamboo handled silverware that I could do it for an army. And I like having the different pieces where I can assess them quite easily. And I think having pull-out drawers in a kitchen makes so much more sense than having just cabinets with shelving. Because this way I can pull things out and I can always see it, and it's always accessible and always ready. And I told you that there is something behind every single closed door, and this is where all of our crystal is. And I love this part of setting the table. To me, the last little crowning touch is going to be whatever the water glasses are. And I love colored water glasses because they give a table an instant punch, but they can also unify disparate patterns. So I can pretty much make any single table setting, anytime, anywhere, any place work with the amount of little goblets I have. My professional trajectory has been anything but normal. But I always joke that normal is a dryer setting, so it all works out. I have always loved design. I have always loved entertaining. I think if I looked back in my entire life, that's really what my love was, my joy was, my passion was. I may have done other things. I was a stay-at-home corporate mother for 20 plus years. I got a divorce, and I decided to follow my dream of being able to put vision for passion into projects. And I think one of the things that really inspires me about doing a project is how a house runs, and it's something I've always done very well. So to me, it's not so much the way a home looks, it's the way the home functions. And that's the part that I really think through with clients of like, where does everything go? How do you get it there? Who's gonna bring it here? And think through those details. And I think that makes me a really good designer, because it's not just how it's going to look, it's how it's going to feel, it's how it's going to sound or not sound in a lot of cases, and how it can change and evolve, and each room can translate to something else in the next room. So I started my design business, I guess, formally about 12, 13 years ago. I can't even remember now. I opened up my own design firm, and then I moved to Palm Beach about 7, 8 years ago. First part-time, then decided I loved it so much full-time. I got a tiny little space on Georgia Avenue and opened up my design business here. And then I had this push from Meg Braff, who is next door, to put a few pillows in my office because people kept coming over saying, Meg said for us to come next door and see you. And then we slowly transitioned. I bought the building. I had to do something with all the space, and I've always wanted to do a retail space that was set up like individual vignettes. I love doing show houses, and I love the creativeness that comes with that, where you put everything together and it all matches and it's all styled. So that's what my concept for doing the store was, and it's been a phenomenal success. It's so much fun. It's so much more work than I ever thought it would be, and I've really enjoyed watching Georgia Avenue go from this very sleepy little street to this design mecca for shopping in Palm Beach. There is a million other places over there. It's gotten little restaurants and stuff popping up. We have a golf course now at the end of the street, and I like being part of a community, so that's been the most fun for me. Now we're heading into the den, one of our more intimate and little cozy spots in the house. And it's a tiny room, and I love when tiny rooms are dark, and I find that people always end up in the smallest room of the house. And this room we painted in a beautiful navy shade, Benjamin Moore's Gentleman Gray, which I use a lot in my projects. And we did this custom banquette sofa. This room is a cozy little masculine space that is filled with things that we love. We have a series of black and white sailing prints in a walnut and nickel frame that I love because they take up the whole wall, and it kind of instantly tells the story of what we like. There's a bunch of America's Cup drawings. There's an old barometer from a ship. I like all the blue and white pieces mixed in. The English George Smith chairs are covered in one of my favorite Lisa Fine fabrics, and the sofa is obviously in a really great G.W. Baker performance fabric. And it is my dog's favorite place to lay and make sure that the mailman's coming so he can give him a good bark. One of my favorite pieces of furniture that I have ever done is this chair done in a cognac American alligator. It's better than a handbag. I think that when you're doing a space and you don't know what to do with something, I'm always like, just add a bar. They always work. But this is the main bar in the house, and it's really probably not the most ideally situated for large-scale entertaining, so hence why we have the preacher's bar in the living room. But this piece was a little tucked-in space that we could always have an intimate cocktail or a nice glass of red wine and cozy up at the end of the day. And it seems to be the place that we kind of gather, and it's like our talking space. Leaving the den goes into the space that utterly captivated me when we were looking at the house. And it's this double height foyer that's got this beautiful oculus window at the top. And to me, this just feels like a London townhouse. And it's what I loved about this house so much. This space has a couple of my sentimental antique favorites. I love this 1913 Steinway piano. And there's something so grand about entertaining and having someone play the piano, and it just feels instantly welcoming. And I have an antique grandfather clock in this space that was actually the very first antique piece I've ever bought. So I think I have that sentimental quality of wanting to have things that have been with me for a long time in a space. And I think sometimes when you move, you have to have that little bit of continuity from one world to the other. The piano ends up becoming kind of a moment for me to display things. It's got a practicality in that I keep my tray of sunglasses and the keys and all that, but this is where I love to have a little wow moment with flowers, and I like the pieces in the back to give some scale and something interesting, and I cut them down from my neighbor's house at night. My trajectory in getting where I was seemed to have all these little dots that always led me to be where I am today. I think the first thing that ever really was the critical aha moment for me was doing a party for Children's Healthcare of Atlanta to establish a foundation fund. My daughter had been in a very bad accident and spent almost 2 years in the hospital. And being a mother and watching other children, you can't help but want to do something. And when you see a need, you have to take care of it. So I did this party for Oscar de la Renta to raise money for children's healthcare. And it was this overwhelming passion of making the place that I lived better. And by better in place, I don't mean house, I mean in city environment, and the world I live in. And so I did this beautiful dinner for Oscar, whom I had been friends with and spent a lot of time with and thought the world of. And so I did one long table because it was kind of hard to convince people to spend the amount of money and then think who got to sit with Oscar. So one long table, everybody got to sit with him. And I've always loved that high-low aspect of entertaining. I like when things seem very natural and they have this organic element to it and not overly pressed, overly styled, overly formal, because the juxtaposition of that is so pretty to me. So I love starched linen over burlap, you know, the textures of things and making people feel comfortable. And I think when you do things in a very casual but relaxed and elegant way, people instantly feel more connected and they feel at ease. So we did this beautiful dinner, served Oscar some of his favorites, filled the tables with beautiful white dahlias, which were in season, and I happen to know that they were his favorite flower. I really thought through the details of stuff he likes and where he was from and what would make him feel special. It's kind of hard to impress Oscar de la Renta. I mean, been there, done that, seen it all the time. But my goal was just to make him feel comforted, welcomed to my home, and like experience the parts of the South that I loved. And during the dinner, he turned to me and suggested that I write a book. And I vividly remember looking at him and saying, about what? And it never occurred to me that I would have that voice to do that. But ironically, I am an English major. I went to school for creative writing. And Oscar really pushed me to write a book about entertaining and decorating and sharing my world with other people. And he said that I was hitting an age where I could be influential with other people, which looking back, I think that means getting old, but it is what it is. And I did the first book, Soirée, Entertaining with Style, and I think it's still the most beautiful, timeless book, and it makes me so happy when people come up and say, I have these dog-eared pages, I've gone back to this, and I've looked at this party over and over. And I think that's really what gracious living is being able to live in a way that is always inspiring and always comforting and always relaxed and welcoming for other people. All right, from here, let's head upstairs so I can show you the bedroom. At the top of the stairs are some of my favorite photography pieces. They're vintage Fernand Fonsecarevis pieces that are shots of his wife. And I have always loved these pieces, and they were in my very first apartment here, and I loved how they played off the limestone walls, and they just instantly make me happy, and they kind of feel like old school Palm Beach to me. So welcome to our bedroom. This is my favorite spot in the house, and it is where I start my day, end my day, and I love all the pieces in here. Everything tells a story. So the little sitting area in here used to be an office, and we loved having a space that doesn't immediately go into a bedroom. And I love the way it opens up off into the stair hall and that it looks out aside, and there's always greenery. We've got a little coffee bar in here and an English mahogany trolley that is filled with some special pieces and some much useful pieces like my reading glasses, which I've just started to have to use and I forget, so I have to have them there. And then of course, I'm Southern, my lipsticks. Cannot go anywhere in life without lipstick. My favorite lipstick is based on a color from Estee Lauder Princess Grace Coral, and they don't make it anymore, so my girls had 24 made for me at a place in New York. And now we're heading into our bedroom, which I am so thrilled to show because it has been a work in progress since we moved in. The problem with being a decorator is the cobbler's children have no shoes. The decorator never has time to do her own space. So this space has kind of evolved over the years, and I wanted something that was extremely neutral because it feels like Robinson Crusoe's treehouse up here to me. You just see swaying palms and beautiful ficus hedges. And so I painted the walls in here Benjamin Moore's natural wicker, and I picked the color because I like the paint name. True story. I always do that. But it's very neutral. It's got kind of this beigey, browny mix to everything with heavy white linen curtains and grass cloth furniture and woven rattan pieces. So I love how textural the room is without having much color. And the ceiling's done in Noblesse faux cypress. And there was a tray ceiling in here, which is never my favorite thing. And so we ripped out the millions of layers of molding that accentuated it and just made it a very streamlined look. And the wallpaper in here looks like cypress, and it kind of brings it down and envelops it. And I think ceilings are a great place to decorate, and people sort of overlook them. And to me, it's sort of a favorite place to have a pop of color or a little texture or something, because it really pulls the room together. I had this ability to buy rolls and rolls and rolls and rolls of old Madagascar raffia grass cloth from the company that used to weave for Ralph Lauren. And so it sort of made a starring role in everything in the bedroom. But I designed the platform bed for myself in my first apartment. It moved here with us, and I'm lucky to have Pioneer Linens right on the corner and their owner on speed dial because I like bedding. This to me, because the room's so neutral, it becomes like my own little fantasy world in here. It was pink for Valentine's Day, and it's got a tropically jungle Porto print, and I like to mix and match them. But today I'm being very neutral. Just put in this pair of beautiful Century chests. These are by Thomas O'Brien, who's another one of my favorite designers. And I have the custom Christopher Spitzmiller lamps that are in my signature shade of blue. So this Danielle blue has always made an appearance everywhere and often. So this was sort of my little punch of me in here. And then we just got these beautiful vintage Dutch botanicals, and there's something so wild and fun about them, but I love the tiger wood frames because it sort of again ties in the rattan and the grass cloth and all the neutrals. But the pieces are a little strange, which I love because they have this graphic quality, but they're really old prints. They're from like 1600s. So welcome to where the magic happens. This is my small dressing room that I love. It's kind of an octagonal shape, and it's filled with mirrored cabinets, and everything behind them is so tight that I'm embarrassed to even show you. But I love my pieces, so I keep all my little caftans on in one part and all my party dresses over here. And I love getting dressed up. And to me, when I open up those cabinets, it's my inner Auntie May moment. This is my new favorite piece by Russell, and it's got little bows on the side, so it has a little peekaboo effect, and then it has the most beautiful full leg trousers over it. So I always feel very, very chic, like I'm Deanna Vreeland and I'm heading somewhere if I've got this on for some reason. And I have it in multiple colors. I have hats everywhere. I have hats on a statue over here. I have hats at the top of the closet. I'm a hat girl. I feel like I'm not really complete unless I have that part to my ensemble. This is probably my very favorite, most sentimental piece of artwork that I have. It's my Wonder Woman, and she's been with me since my divorce and my house transition, every single place I've ever been, and it reminds me every morning that I am invincible, that I can get up, every day is going to be a new day, and that's kind of my like, pull yourself together, put your lipstick on, and go conquer the world. I'm pseudo well organized. I won't say I'm fully well organized, but in small spaces and having lived on a boat for multiple summers, everything has a place and there's a place for everything, and it all has to be tucked away and put where it can be displayed so it's easily grabbed. Our bathroom is the space that we both love, and we've got it filled with some Slim Aaron's pieces that we both love. But my favorite part of what we did here, and I think it's a great tip for anyone doing a house, is the thermostatics are right here and right here. So I can take a shower, turn it on without getting my hands or my hair wet. It's my pet peeve when you have to get into the shower to turn it on and then you're soaking wet. I wanted a crazy bathroom that had all kinds of like hand-painted palm tiles and everything else. So we compromised with the Calcutta and the Carrara marble. So it has a masculine feel my fiance liked. And then I got my big Slim Aaron's pieces in here, which always feels sort of old school glamorous. One of the great things about a neutral bathroom though is you can change the personality with towels and your robe and pops of color on the walls. I tend to be a little bit of a collector and like patterns, so this is where I get my pattern with my monogrammed Wheezy towels. I always think the best compliment someone can give anyone about a space is that every time they go into it, they see something different. It's really what I think a home should be. It should have layers and different aspects that kind of draw your eye around. And I like whenever you sit down and have a glass of wine and notice one small detail that you've really never noticed before. And that's what I love about having a space to decorate, is all the like layers and vignettes that create and tell a story about a house, about the people that live in it, what they like, where they travel. And to me, that's the most interesting part of a house. I don't think I ever get stuck when I'm designing things. Every once in a while I might hit a little roadblock, but at the start of a project, I am the most obsessive human being you have ever seen in your life. It is all day, every day, 24 hours, kind of working through details, and it's something I really enjoy. It is like a super relaxing escape for me to put myself into a project and walk through it over and over and over and think about the details. So I definitely hit roadblocks like anyone would, but I think sometimes just the craziest ideas will come to you whenever you're least expecting it. So like I might come up with a curtain trim while I'm on the golf course and supposed to be thinking about how I'm going to hit the ball, but I like getting into that mental space of envisioning and enveloping a project, and I find it's just so much fun for me. And I like to have a lot of projects all the time. I have a low threshold for boredom. Home means shelter, it means a place of comfort, it means a place that you can take your shoes off and feel relaxed. It means that sense of, I can't wait to go climb into my sheets and be in my own little cozy space. It means dogs and ruffled pillows and things not perfect, and just that ultimate escape that makes you feel so cosseted and so warm and so loved by your own space that you really enjoy being there no matter what time of the year it is, more than any place else on this earth.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.